Hello, I'm Rusty, and this is Hampton,
Hi, how are you
and
doing?
and this is our first podcast. I guess it's a knitting podcast, but it's going to be quite a bit more because I'm going to show my art and maybe music, maybe plants. But I'm pretty obsessed with knitting, so I'll start there. Uh,
I don't knit. Uh, don't know how. Don't really want to, but it's interesting watching Rusty do it and seeing what he comes up with, seeing how he will follow patterns out of like Rowan patterns or things he sees on Ravelry or something like that, and then
Arn
but
and
then
Carlos.
and Arn and Carlos and other podcasts, but then to see him come up with his own ideas and how he designs those and then executes them to create art, not necessarily functional pieces. Some people will sometimes say about your art, "Oh, it's a sculpture with a sweater on it," but it's more than that. So that's a way of talking about it too.
Well, yeah, I come at this as an artist. I've knit my whole life. I've knit about 50 years at this point, not continuously, but I keep coming back to it. And I'd say the past 5 years or so, I've really been knitting as much as I can and pretty obsessed with it. So I am just now getting to the point in my artwork, which I've had a career for about 20 years as a professional artist, and I'm just starting to incorporate knitting into my artwork. So it's not an aside for me anymore. Uh, it's the main thing I'm doing. So I'm sitting all day knitting, and most people don't have the luxury for that, but it's really been helpful during this the coronavirus scare that's been going on, and I stocked up on yarn, and actually I ran across a podcast which kind of got us here in the first place for me wanting to do a podcast because I'm not a social person that likes to go out and
He's a hermit.
I'm a hermit.
Let's just say that.
But there's something about this coronavirus and the lockdowns that we've been going through that's made me want to. At first, I was excited because I'm an introvert, and that sounds great to me.
Right, introvert.
Except, then we had friends that would want to connect through Zoom, and we started having a couple happy hours and meeting with friends on Zoom, and I started thinking, seeing the benefit of that, and just loving that. I don't know. It gave me. I liked the distancing. I liked the distancing of that, and so then I started actually watching some podcasts. It started with Carlos and Arne, or well, I've got it reversed there. Arne and Carlos, and some others. Needles at the Ready, and what is it? Fiber Hustle, and a few Grocery Girls. And I started thinking, well, I'm a knitter. I've knit for a long time, and I have lots of things to show. And maybe I can show my artwork a little bit in the meantime, and people can get an idea of what I'm doing. Because usually I say I'm an artist, and now I'm knitting. Before I was painting, before I was doing photography, and now I'm knitting. And people get this confused look on their face that I just don't make sense. So anyway, I thought I would show off some projects.
Yeah.
And
Plus, since we are in this lockdown, more or less, your galleries across the country, you're not able to go visit with them and visit with their clients. And so they've been having you make videos to send to them for them to air locally and well on the internet. So
yeah, that's been interesting. The art,
how far that goes.
the galleries I've been in, that I'm in working with now, don't know how to have regular shows. They don't know how to set up an exhibit and have an opening and have crowds show up. So they've been doing lots of virtual exhibitions and studio interviews. And so one of my galleries asked me to create a video tour through my studio. So I was there trying to film myself on my camera and walk backwards and see what was going on. And I didn't do such a good job of it, but all that and the Zoom meetings has made me want to start doing this. So this is our episode number 1, and we don't have well, I'm not going to say that now. We'll see. We'll see how much of an outline we have once we get into it.
Yeah, we're going to be more scripted. Because the other thing I would say, you had said, of course, we always have to contradict each other, don't we? Because that's the way it works. You said you're just starting out using knitting in your art, but you've actually been doing it for at least 3 years now. Because that show at the Grace Museum with that large piece that you did, that was 3 years ago this summer.
Yeah. I know. Well, that's why I say about 5 years ago I started really.
Yeah, it was about 5 years ago you really started getting back into knitting, and then but your goal already once you started knitting again was, I'm going to do something with art this time. It's not just going to be Afghans and sweaters, and which
I still do. I love,
and I'm enjoying it. He's made me some fingerless gloves that he came up with the pattern, and they're great because in the winter here in Dallas, it can be cold on days, but I still want my fingers to be able to type on the phone and stuff. So and then when I'm not doing that, I can just kind of tuck my fingers in, and they're almost like a mitten except with an opening.
Yeah.
So
I like making the functional pieces.
Yeah, I like using them.
We have lots of friends who are potters, and so a lot of times are talking about functional pottery versus art pottery, and some of our potter friends get really excited when it's functional and we're using something every day. Oh, that's my cereal bowl, or something very useful. So,
well, when I met you 22 years ago, you were doing pottery, but it was not functional, it was sculptural.
Yeah.
So that's the way you've always been since I've known you, is you take traditional media and do non-traditional things with them.
And I'm going to go grab a piece of ceramics.
Well, okay, but you really should pause. But I guess you can edit this out.
What I mean. Oh, I thought it was right here on the counter. Where did that triangle go that was right here?
Look underneath. Move those cat cups, and dig back in there. Did you just hide it? I did not just hide it. It's been put away for a little while now, for a few weeks. But you can edit all of this out.
So, years ago, when I was just getting into art, I moved into an artist collective studio building. It's about 30,000 square feet. About 50 artists had set up individual studios there, and a few of us lived there. And my best friend James Wattrell was a potter, and he let me use his kilns and glazes and help me with some techniques, and I ended up making some 3D bas-relief platters, and just they're kind of functional, but really, who wants to eat off of that? But
not with this glaze. It's not.
No, it's porous. But this has like a woven pattern. So years ago, before I was thinking of it being knitting, I was always working with these interlocking layers. And so this was at the beginning of my art career, and about 20 years later, now I'm weaving together photographs in layers, creating 3D forms out of photos. Well, I was a couple of years ago, now I'm knitting and painting.
And drawings. You do drawings and cut those up and make 3D sculptural, constructive pieces that way also.
And then Hampton's been going to art exhibits probably even more than I have. It's been part of my networking and career, and just good for me to get out and mingle with people and promote myself as much as I want to hibernate. But Hampton's been over the years a lot better of getting out and photographing shows and friends and posting. He's almost become a press agent for a lot of the artists here in town because he likes doing it. So he's real involved with me in the art world, even though he is works at a bank. And I don't know if you want to talk about it, your bank, but
I work at a bank.
yeah. Well, you work at home now.
Well, I
For a bank.
I have a 40-plus year banking career, and yes, currently I'm working at home, but I don't do loans, and I don't do mortgages, and I'm not cashing checks from my kitchen table, so I'm doing what I can from the kitchen table.
Well, I'm gonna enjoy having you here as long as you're here.
I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I mean, at first it was weird, and there are days where it gets weird that I'm just sitting there by myself. The cats don't even come visit me during the day. They're with you, and unless like the other day you had an appointment and you left, and then the cats knew to come tell me, "Hey, feed me." But otherwise, I'm sitting in there right by the food and the bowls, and they go tell you because they're used to you being there all day. And
I am home all the time. My studio is here attached to the condo, I guess, and so the cats always see me,
Yep.
and I'm.
I mean,
the one to go to.
I've been enjoying eating lunch with you and seeing you. I don't have commute time, so when I say goodbye to you in the morning, it's pretty quick that I'm starting to work and I've finished my breakfast. And when I get off work, well, I just go tell you, "Hey, I'm home." But otherwise, I mean, I'll be ready to go back to the office when it's safe because I like interaction with people. I like being around people, and I'm missing going to art shows. I'm missing. It's just not the same looking at art on the internet. It's not quite the same buying art on the internet. You see something. Do I like it as much as this other piece that they've got? I can't examine the details of it.
You can't what?
Examine the details of the painting or the piece of pottery or whatever it is that I'm looking at to know, am I really loving it or not?
It's kind of the same with yarn because I'm sure like a lot of you into knitting or crocheting or fiber, it's so satisfying to be able to pick yarn up and just feel it, smell it, just really get a sense of the shine, everything. And our last that I can find, our last knit shop here in Dallas, Texas, closed down about 6 months ago, before the coronavirus, and now. But I was still able to look at things online. But now that's closed down, so I really feel cut off in a way from.
I mean, you still have the fabric stores and the craft stores that you can buy yarn, but the selection is limited, and it's
The
different.
selection, and then it was Holly's yarn shop, and there were always people in there to ask questions or show off your newest unfinished work. What is that, UFO? I'm learning the acronyms that after hearing all these
Unfinished
acronyms.
object.
Yeah, and then everyone has project bags, and I usually just have like a paper bag from the store or Target or something.
Cardboard box.
Yeah, and I'm sure the needles poke through it all the time. So a project bag makes sense, but people are really into their project bags, and maybe that'll happen to me. I don't know.
We'll see.
But I guess I could get started showing. I brought one thing to show because when when I was a kid, my grandpa tatted, and my grandma knit. My dad's dad, my mom's mom. My dad had learned how to knit. My mom knit. Knitting was just, even though a lot of men didn't do it in the 70s, or I felt like it was is no problem for a guy to do it because people in my family had done it, and my grandpa would tat, and he was a railroad. I don't know if you can see, just standard tatting, but he was a telegrapher, or the railroad. You do the Morse code at the railroad stations, and he would sit there and tat all day long, and he didn't talk. He was an eccentric guy. He would tat all the time, and he'd family visit. And so I would sit in his lap and watch his hands go with the shuttle, and just got fascinated by that one long thread creating this structure that then could become a fabric with lots of detail. And so when I got these recently from my sister in Oregon. Here's another one. I mean, you've probably all seen tatting, but it's nice to have something from the family passed down. So anyway, that was, I feel like I was not born to do knitting, but I came to it naturally. And I've been doing it my whole life, even though I've been very much an amateur. And until lately, I've just been really learning a lot through YouTube, and made a couple sweaters recently, and went through a series of making hats, and I'll show some of that. And did a lot of color work recently, following a knit along blog at Carlos or Arne and Carlos. And anyway, that might be it to start out with. You have things that you might show as well, but
as we progress,
yeah. Okay, well, maybe that's it for our first episode. Maybe I'll add some other things in.
Yeah.
We'll see. This might be it. And I did not know that webcams would be so hard to find. And I guess everyone's discovered Zoom and connecting. Maybe everyone already had webcams, but for some reason I have gone all over looking for a certain webcam, and I couldn't find it. Plus, the whole range of products seems to be out. All these Logitech, however you say that, webcams are sold out on back order. And I had told Hampton that we're gonna do this tonight, and we're gonna try to create our first episode, and the camera's on back order, and it might be a couple weeks. So we're just going ahead with my laptop right now. And
because it has a camera.
It has a camera, but
our phones have cameras.
It's at the bottom of the screen down there, and so we've got this weird angle looking up at us.
We have digital single lens with SLR cameras too. You know, we're not starved of having a camera. We just don't have a webcam that would probably be easier to manipulate because it's smaller. And we'll want to be doing some overhead shots as you do some knitting and show projects over time. So we'll be getting the equipment. It just we didn't know. We didn't know how hard it'd be. I always think you could buy anything in Dallas, but anymore it's with coronavirus, that's just not true anymore. You can't buy flour, you can't buy yeast, masks, personal protective equipment. You know, you never know what's going to be missing at the store. Still, toilet paper and paper towels are still hard to find. We've been at this 2 months now.
Yeah, Texas has decided to open back up, but we're staying at home, or we're going out and getting drive-through orders with our masks on, and
we're not eating inside a
cleaning
restaurant.
ourselves, and
we're not going to no theaters or no. Well, we wouldn't be going to a sporting event anyway. But y'all can go if you want, but we're not going. Don't be looking for us there.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the no sports on TV or on the news for a while, so that's got to come to an end. Lots of unhappy people, but I've kind of liked it. So anyway, that's us in Dallas for now, and we will have more for you later.
Bye.
Oh, wait. I'll edit that out. For sure, I'll edit that out. Bye. Welcome back. And I decided that I needed to show some knitting. I included a number of pictures, but how can I have a knitting podcast without showing any knitting projects? So here we go.
All right. Let's do it.
Let's do a little bit more.
Doing?
I'm doing good.
Talking to them. Okay. How y'all doing?
Okay, so a number of years ago,
yes,
I'll get used to doing this. This is interesting. But a few years ago, or closer to 10 years ago, I started wanting to pick knitting back up, and I bought this book, The Great American Afghan, and I just wanted it to give me some exposure to some new techniques, a lot of cabling, some one of them's knit in the round, and anyway, 10 years ago, some of this was pretty new to me, so this was a good place to start.
even though you'd done it as a kid, but you kind of gotten away from it for a while, right?
Yeah, I had done it periodically. I would usually pick it up in the winter, maybe like a lot of people when it gets cold, and it sounds good to stay indoors and have something knit on your lap, and but so I had really gotten into it periodically and almost every winter. But then about, I don't know, 10 years ago, I started finding real projects, and this is kind of my entry back into it. So it might be about 10 years old, but some of these panels were a lot of fun. I really like this traveling, that sloped cable, the really complicated cable. And it was actually really interesting here. This was a collection from, I guess Knitters Magazine had put together winners in a contest. And these were the 24 winners. And they were all great. Some of them I liked better than others. I liked the stories that they told, just a little bio or a description of why they were doing the work. And
you haven't done all 24 yet.
No. Some
maybe
of them,
you never will.
Some of them I didn't respond to as much. I kind of liked this one. It was done by for 31 years she was a court administrator and a justice of the peace, and she finally got to retire, and now she talks about knitting on the porch with her mom, and I don't know, it was sweet. And this one, the lady describes herself more as an architect than a knitter, and she likes to build I'm sure you've seen it.
I've seen it, but yeah.
And she thinks of building it, and this, I really wanted to, here, let me put it on you.
I don't know if you can see
well, no, but you'll get the idea. And
idea.
then across the top where the cables go around the top, I used to think that was impossible, and so I kind of learned how to do that. It's been 10 years, so I can't remember. I think they were I-cords that then got attached, and the center panel was done separately. Then this border, this cable border with its own continuous smooth cables, and then the outside was picked up and knitted on a 16-inch round needle. But this one was a lot of work. I don't know if cabling isn't as interesting as color work on the back, but sometimes I like showing off the backs of the work. Oh, and then this lady, I could see it after I read, what was her name? George, Georgia Vincent designed this one. And this one was knit in the round. And she was or is inspired by old world architecture and fireplaces. And so I can kind of see that type of detail going on. One of my favorites is this, and let me find her name. You want to hold that for a second?
Sure.
Anne Strong, and she was inspired by things outdoors and produce displays and markets, and she loves pomegranates. And maybe you can see, yeah, this
The
the
repeating pomegranates.
kind of wishbone seed stitch in the middle is, the pomegranate, and the double textured cable on the sides is like the inside and the outside of the pomegranate. And I thought that was really clever. I loved it. And then probably my favorite is this one, but I keep turning away. I'm sorry. Is
No, you just also keep saying they're all your favorites.
well, the last
That's
one was
interesting.
almost my favorite, and then this one probably is. Each one is my favorite as I'm knitting it.
That's right.
Each
I
one I
getcha.
can't wait to see. Ada Fennick, in honor of a good friend that was, or is, I'm assuming, Jewish and was marrying an Irishman. And I guess both cultures share the tree of life symbol. And then she took the cables off of their wedding invitation. So I love that. Okay, well, I did quite a few more. Some I repeated in different colors, brown pomegranates. And then I started finding some other swatches because I thought someday, so this really is a unfinished project or a work in progress. I'm not sure what the difference is. Maybe unfinished means you've set it aside and you're not even working on it. I don't know. I just thought of that. But whatever this is, I plan to come back to it and put it together into an Afghan. And so over the years, I've run across different patches, and obviously it's not cream colored like all the others, but I will start changing it up. And then I found one, and I don't know if Hampton wants to explain, but I found one that I thought would be perfect for Hampton.
Because I like crowns, and this one is a crown. And I think you can see over there on the other side of Rusty, there's a Sansevieria plant, and it's the pot that it's in is also a crown because I like crowns. I have a number of them myself that I wear on Fridays. I call Fridays Tiara Fridays. You have a few drinks, you wear a tiara, and you relax from the week, and
You're the king of your own
right.
world.
You don't have to deal with the man anymore, and you get to be the king of your domain. That's right.
So a number of things I've knitted have had tiaras or crowns on them, and yeah, that's fun. And it's surprising. You would think a tiara is just like open, but they're actually kind of warm to wear. It's kind of
Yeah, they actually
it's
are.
not a knit hat, but somehow it manages to be warm to wear.
Yeah, it is. It is. And here in Texas, it's warm all the time. Winters are warm. So, yeah, it's warm all the time.
And too warm for something like that. This was a bigger project. My next, it's almost finished. I'll show a picture of it next time, but it's actually a surprise for a friend. I have a friend that is turning 60, and he is an art person. He's been the director at a museum. I think he's got his own consulting business now, and he has a gallery in New York that's going to put on a birthday exhibition for him, and has asked artists to create pieces to exhibit and then gift to Bill. So this is my gift to Bill, and I have got to find some way that he will not see this for the next few weeks, or I might need to hold off on this footage. But okay, so here we go. This is Bill, and it is obviously a portrait of Bill. So I started off with a photo, and if there's software to do this, someone should tell me. But I spent all day, I took his photo and I took it into Photoshop and created a line drawing around his face and fussed with it for hours and got a line portrait of him. And then I drew a grid over it and I translated that into a pattern. And so that took all day. And so then I knit the center panel, and there's a lot of, I wasn't sure which way to go, whether it should be intarsia, the big section of blue, and the white should be intarsia. But then I had these lines going around it that, and then it would go back and forth. So I thought of stranded color work. So it is a mix of intarsia and color work. And let me see if you can. And if it were easier to take off the pillow, I'd just show you the back. But so when I first knitted those the outlines, the single lines of black, because I was trying it with intarsia, somehow those were huge. The tension was huge on those, and I mean, you could see through it easily. And I had to go back and pull the tension and work those black lines after I had knit the whole thing. I had to work it all out, and so now it looks great, and it looks like I just knit it, but that was a lot of work to get it back into shape. I don't know if it's learning how to mix intarsia with color work. But anyway, I got through it, and I like it, and it looks like him, and maybe I'll post a picture of him.
And your frame, you're all that cabling you did back in the past 10 years working on those Afghan squares came in handy, because now you knew how to really do the cabling to do a frame that looked like something that you would get at the frame shop for a painting.
Yeah, because he's an art person, I thought a frame would be great, and I really wanted to have this heavy, elaborate frame on here, and I even thought maybe I should use some gold or something, but anyway, the dark seemed to go.
Yeah, it wouldn't be gold leaf on yarn, probably. I mean, but a black frame is good.
You could get, I would think you could get yarn that was, I don't know, if you could get all shiny goldish yarn, or anyway, someone will tell me.
Somebody will tell you.
But anyway, I'm happy with the way it is. I'm not redoing it. And at first, I didn't know how I was going to hang it, because it's going into a gallery, things on the wall, and I was trying to figure out how to, after I blocked it, it was laying pretty flat, but it was so saggy that finally I ended up turning it into a pillow. And so then I just knitted a simple pearl knit texture. So that is my latest nearly finished object. I actually have to seam in the last edge here.
And you need to ship it in a couple of weeks.
And ship it. It's never finished until it's photographed and shipped, and then it might not even be finished. So this is my Bill pillow. What?
Nothing. I'm just... Right. Some things are never finished.
Yeah. Okay, and now we are moving on to finished objects.
All right.
And you were going to show your gloves.
All right. So Rusty's made me 2 pair of gloves for Christmas over the past few years. These, I've been wearing them now for probably 3 or 4 years. So they're actually kind of starting to wear.
And they have that knit pearl, kind of a diamond texture.
Yeah.
like the back of that pillow.
They do. Both sides. I really like these, and I wear the heck out of them. And that's why they are wearing. But see, they fit great. Like I said, in Texas, winters here we have an hour or two of freezing here and there. Occasionally, we'll have a full week of freezing. It's very rare. If you have the Super Bowl here, it'll be under ice. The city will be under ice for a week, but otherwise, never happens.
We had a new stadium too that year too.
Yeah.
New stadium and Super Bowl, and it got frozen out for the exact week of Super Bowl. It was
2011.
amazing.
The economy was just starting to recover. We needed the business in town.
Some people are still traumatized.
Hey, well, the economy's messed up again. So give it another 10 years or less. Who knows? We'll be back in the same boat. Anyway, these are great. I can text easily. My fingers are out. If it is cold and I'm walking around out in the wind or something, I just do like this. I just put my fingers in, and it works. And if I'm grabbing a bag or something, I can just grab it and still do like this. So I love these. They're perfect. I think you pretty much just made up.
No, those. I think I found a pattern on Ravelry, and I was looking for
You
because
still had to get the right size.
well, yeah, but I pretty much you can just follow a pattern. But I could not find the pattern again when Hampton wanted more, so
he made me a new pair for this past Christmas.
that I started last Christmas. So I was working on them for a year, and I got sidetracked and finished them
Now
this year.
This pattern is a pattern that Rusty developed for the knit himself, because it's a two-dimensional representation of his 3D art that you saw some in the earlier video, and you'll be seeing more because it's what he's doing right now.
I call it Cube Network. It's kind of like the tips of cubes that are in. Oh well, I can't show you that way.
There'll be episodes where you talk about it.
I use that
So
pattern
again,
a lot.
Texting, driving easily, grabbing bags, and then when it's cold,
Turtling up.
I just turtle it up. That's right. Sometimes I can just even stick my fingers into each other like that or something, and then it's almost a muff. But it's great.
And I wish I were better at the yarn. I've been watching a number of people. There are so many people
And I like these
podcasting,
colors too.
but this one guy just remembers everything. Well, a lot of them do, but one of you all, if you ever end up seeing this, can remember everything, all the types of yarn, all the names of the designers. It's kind of amazing, and so I have not kept the labels and on most of my yarn. I roll it up and I start using it, and I mix it, and I don't know what matches with what pretty soon. But I did get this yarn. I took it. My family's from Oregon. We're in Dallas, Texas, but my family in Oregon are by this Pendleton or Mission Mills,
Yeah.
and they Pendleton.
Is it in
I think
Salem or Portland?
it's in Salem,
It's in Salem. Yeah.
and so there were some.
Is that where you got this yarn? All this.
Mhm.
That was a cool little store.
Yeah, it's near Pendleton Mills, where Pendleton is woven. I think that's up in Portland, but there's some collaboration. And anyway, I shouldn't have started talking about that, but I got that yarn in Salem at Mission Mills, and I don't know the type,
Last year.
but I was looking for a reason to use it. I got a pink too that I wanted to include in there, but it didn't happen this project. So, what do we have scheduled? Okay, so recently, another finished object. Recently, I finished a sweater that I had intended to be Hamptons, but somehow by the time I finished it, it had shrunk as I was knitting it.
I had grown.
Okay.
I was doing my forklifts while you were knitting it for a while, and the
It was all muscle. It was all muscle.
All add up. What are the forklifts? Oh.
So it turned into my sweater, and I gained a little bit, and now I can barely wear it, but I am very proud of it. It's a pretty simple cardigan. Just all well here.
I picked out the color of yarn, and I picked out the buttons. They're coconut shell buttons. I like them.
I am not very good at showing this.
So hopefully he'll make me another one in a 2XL size. Or maybe I'll lose some weight by the time I need a sweater again.
I wasn't really... This is my first time putting on pockets. I've done cabled sweaters without pockets, but I was pretty happy with how all the seams and... Anyway, I am not sure if there's a better way to show this off. I guess if we have an overhead camera, once we get sophisticated, we can look right down on it. But
once it comes in, once your order arrives, where is everything? First it's toilet paper and paper towels, and now it's video cameras, and we went out and bought a sewing machine this week, and all the cheap ones were sold out. And one store was sold out, and it just like we drove all over Dallas and got one, but it was not the cheap one.
They were sold out of the cheap ones.
Yeah.
Some stores were completely sold out of the full range.
And one store said, we can't sell them.
Yeah. Yeah,
I thought Texas was all about making money above all else. Money's God here. I don't know what happened. Whatever. They said they couldn't sell them.
Yeah, well, most people couldn't even pick up the phone. It was hard getting through to any Joann's. So I felt by the time we found a place that had one, we want to make masks, of course. Who isn't making masks? But every year or so, there's something that comes up where I need to knit. I had done a couple Christmas stockings, and I really wanted to protect the floaters inside, so I made a felt liner, and I stitched it all by hand, and it took me hours, and I thought this could have taken 10 minutes if I had a sewing machine. So every now and then, I really need a sewing machine. So it'll be nice to have, and we might show unboxing it and trying to use it, because
probably will.
That could be kind of entertaining and satisfying if it works out, or embarrassing if it doesn't. But
I used to have a machine long before I met Rusty, and somewhere in one of my moves I got rid of it. There's only so much room for things. When you upsize and downsize, sometimes you have to get rid of a lot of stuff. But I used to make my own shirts, and I used to make quilts, and when I was a kid, I made stuffed toys. That was fun. But I haven't done any of that stuff in a long time. So I'm looking forward to seeing if I can get back into it at some point once we set it all up and get going.
Yeah. So that's all I have planned for today. And I'm going to add this to the bit that we did earlier where I didn't show any knitting, and post this in the next few days. And the plan is to do a podcast every couple weeks. I could easily adjust that, but I'm going to try to stick with something to just be consistent. But
saying it out loud makes a commitment and sets a goal, and then we'll have to work towards meeting that goal.
It will help me keep me on track. That's for sure. Now, if I don't post it, no, I will post this soon.
And I'll nag him till he does. So. What's a husband for?
Okay.
All right.
See you next time.
Bye, y'all.